I read A Proposal They Can't Refuse by Natalie Caña, and I went to Goodreads, and Lord and behold, the ratings were astronomically negative. And this is why I always say take Goodreads with a grain of salt, and why you shouldn't let low ratings on a book keep you from finding something that can resonate with you. Que lo que, readers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wendy. It is nice to be back. I took a small break because of Thanksgiving. I am a cook in my family as well, so there was a lot of prepping, okay? I have a Hispanic family. I am Hispanic. I'm Caribbean. So I had a lot of planning to do and a pernil to make, and it was super delicious. I hope everyone had a great and safe holiday. Throughout this holiday, I finished A Proposal They Can't Refuse by Natalie Caña, and I had a lot to talk about with this book. I decided to go into Latino authors, Latino reads. I wanted to connect with my roots for the holidays. I feel like the holidays, I want to connect more with my Caribbean roots, and I was like, why not? Reading these books gave me so much nostalgia, especially this book, and I want to talk about how it made me feel and what the heck happened when I went on Goodreads and I realized that this book was rated 3.76 stars. I was baffled. So first things first, what is this book about? This book follows a Puerto Rican FMC or female main character named Camila, and Camila and her family own a Puerto Rican restaurant in Chicago. And also it follows MMC, or the main male character Liam, which is an Irish American distillery owner along with his grandpa. Now these two are best friends and have been best friends since they were children. However, things happened and they disconnected, stopped kind of talking to each other. Both of their grandparents decided to give them a proposal. Now, Camila is in a situation with her family where in Chicago, it is getting gentrified. And it brought me also back to New York, specifically Brooklyn, where a lot of the communities, Puerto Rican owned restaurants, cafes, and a lot of those things are being pushed out of these neighborhoods. And I remember one time in TikTok, there was this business owner, Puerto Rican business owner that owned a cafe in, I believe it was Brooklyn. And she was begging TikTokers online, like she couldn't keep her coffee shop afloat because they hiked up her rent. But also there was a coffee shop opening up right across the street from her, and she gathered a lot of support. But this is the reality of things. Things are getting gentrified. Culture is getting pushed out. And a lot of the times that's not a good thing. But yes, Camila's family is in that situation right now in this book. And while Camila is a chef, she wants to help out the family business. However, she is finding it that her family doesn't take her seriously. And then there's Liam. Liam and his grandfather own a distillery right next door to Camila's parents. His grandfather doesn't think he has the powerhouse to continue his legacy and to continue the distillery. So what happens is Camila's grandpa and Liam's grandpa are best friends. And so they propose to them, okay, well, if you two get engaged, if you two get into a relationship, we won't have to sell the buildings and you get to keep the businesses. And without another option, Camila and Liam are forced to go into a fake engagement. And to be honest, I absolutely loved this story. What I loved about this book is that this book shows a lot of family dynamics, and especially in a Hispanic Caribbean culture. And honestly, I thought that her family was very manipulative, very much not taking Camila seriously and laughing at her and just kind of ignoring her request to spruce up the restaurant and make sure that it is up to date to what people currently want. And she wanted to save the business. What can you do with a family that just doesn't support your vision and looks at your vision as whitewashing? They even make fun of her for adding certain ingredients to the menu and saying, this isn't Puerto Rican food. now you've done messed it up. Like, we don't want any changes. Like, they were so rigid towards changes that she was thinking. Even though that family dynamic was very toxic, I will say that it was extremely toxic. I feel that it also portrayed a lot of different Hispanic households and how, yeah, sometimes you don't get taken seriously and sometimes you get dismissed. I myself went through that experience as well. And I'm still looked at as that 12-year-old little girl who doesn't know any better. And a lot of the times it makes you feel small and it makes you feel like, hey, I'm contributing. I know what I'm doing. I'm in my 30s and yet I'm not taken seriously. And this is the same exact thing that Camila is going through. I mean, she's turning 30 and she's like, hey, listen, why don't you guys listen to my ideas? So I understood her extremely well. I love the diversity in this book as well. You have Irish and American style, you have Boricuas, you have characters that portray and that represent who we are as Latinos. And also it portrayed so much nostalgia because I literally was like, man, this reminds me of my family get-togethers. And I'm like, whoa, this is so cool to read certain dishes and know what they are, and they're speaking Spanglish and you're just like, you're feeling in the moment. I do love the romance between the FMC and the MMC. They've always been best friends since childhood. However, certain things happened and they fell off and they stopped talking, didn't really hang out. That forced proximity forced them to kind of reevaluate their lives, reevaluate themselves as people. And I don't know, I don't really like miscommunication tropes, but I feel like there was some miscommunication tropes, but I didn't find it unbearable. It was definitely a very slow burn romance because they have to kind of get to that place where they were before they fell off. And honestly, they both like each other. They're just so stubborn to actually say what they feel. And it's so frustrating at times because Liam is kind of like, I love her. I love the way she looks. I love her curls. I love her eyes. And it's like, my boy, speak or forever hold your peace. And then Camila is also stubborn because she wants to be the alpha. She wants to be in control of every situation, and it backfires on her multiple times, and she messes up, and then she's left there to pick up the pieces and she's helpless. I want to say that I didn't like, obviously, the family toxicity, yes. However, I feel that this book portrays that not every family is peachy perfect. And you have people in the family, especially Camila's mom and dad, where they're focused so much on their daughter's marriage and their daughter having children. And they equate being successful with having a family. And that's not what Camila looks at as being successful. She thinks that, you know, reviving the restaurant and being a chef is something more successful than actually having a family and finding someone to marry. I'm going to read a small paragraph from the book just to kind of give you the feeling and the visual of what Camila actually felt while she talks to her family. It says, her family busted up laughing over that, but Camila didn't find any of it funny. Her family was proving what they thought of her. She was nothing but a funny anecdote, the butt of a joke. She couldn't be taken seriously or trusted to complete a task the right way. She could argue her case until she was blue in the face, and they still wouldn't trust her with anything real. And that sucks. It really does. But I think Camila deserves a little bit of grace in the book where she realizes, and I'm going to read from the book, and that's because I felt for a long time that I put my family first, but they put me last. You mentioned love, respect, and support, and I didn't feel that. I felt pressure to prove myself as valuable because it was like every mistake I made was highlighted, but any positive was glossed over. I felt that in my soul because I grew up the same way. I was always a straight A student, and this is me in the Bronx, okay? And I always felt like I did the right thing, but one simple mistake that I made in my childhood, in my my adolescence, it blew over and it basically ran over all of my accomplishments. That's how it felt like growing up. And it didn't matter that I was a straight A student and I did everything right. And even as I was going into my freshman year of college, I got my job. I was doing great. And then the one mistake that I made, it didn't matter. It didn't matter at all because that one mistake defined who I was to my family. So I understood Camila very well, and that was very toxic. There were times in the book where I was like, Camila needs to go no contact. But I understand her position because family is everything. But this serves as a reminder to me that it's okay to have boundaries even with family members. So if anything, this pretty much told me, hey, listen, it's okay if you just want to cut off people for a while. Like, it doesn't have to be forever, but cut them off. Put some boundaries up and make sure they stay there and make sure that those boundaries are not crossed. But that is just the me, the healed me talking. This line was with a conversation she had with her mother after everything blew up. She says, sí, Mommy nodded. She pointed a bony finger at Camila. Y eso es lo que te pasa por pendeja. And I'm just like, what, Mom? But at the same time, it's very nostalgic because I've heard that line so many times growing up too. I'm just like, okay, me pasa por pendeja. That's fine. Like, that's cool. I may have needed a hug, but here we are. I'm a pendeja. Like, I read this book and I thought this was a really great book. I felt satisfied. I felt satisfied with the ending. And I absolutely enjoyed it. And then I was like, okay, let me update my Goodreads, you know? And Lord and behold, I was like, this book got 3.65 stars overall on Goodreads? Like, for real? So I shifted through the comments of 1 stars. And I'm going to read them through, tell you what I think, because some of it is kind of like BS. So the first one is from Van. It says, sorry, but no, a Spanish mom would never treat her daughter like this. No, that is exactly how toxic mothers react in a Caribbean Spanish household. I am sorry, girlfriend. It's the truth. There is a lot of toxicity in the Spanish community, in Spanish families. It's there. Just because it doesn't happen in your family and your family is perfect doesn't mean that it doesn't happen elsewhere. But anyways, let's continue. A Spanish family would never treat her like this. And of course, a Spanish woman never forgives so easily and say sorry to a bunch of a-holes. What the freak? Sorry, but I don't believe in this kind of love or relationship. I was hoping for grovel or something, but the author prefers the easy way and is the heroine who ask for forgiveness. I hate that. I do agree there. I feel that the FMC, Camila, shouldn't be the only one apologizing. I was expecting an apology from her parents and her family, but anyone who is Hispanic knows that those types of families never apologize. My own father has never apologized to me for what he's done to me. So if I'm not getting an apology from my father, I don't expect Camila's family to ever say, I am sorry. It's not in their vocabulary at all. Yes, a Spanish family can do these things. There are toxic family members out there. Like I said, my dad is an example. And to this day, I mean, he had a very aggressive cancer. And even while he was handling all of this, I never heard the words, I am sorry. And of course, I went no contact. He's fine now. He's cancer free. He's fine. But after all that spiel, and I was pregnant at the time, I cut that communication real quick. I want my peace. The next one was by Sydney. You know what the worst kind of books are? The ones that actively treat their FMC like SHIT and then write some half a comeuppance for them in the 3rd act. Okay. I do agree Camila wasn't treated fairly, but okay. This book would have been so much better without Camila's entire family except Saint, he can say. I do understand where she's coming from, but at the same time, I think that her family was very central to her growth. And also, without her family, it doesn't really show the dynamics within a Hispanic household. It doesn't give it justice to just leave her family out of it. She is a very family-oriented person. Then she goes on to say, they are disgustingly nasty to her. Yeah. A fact that Cami acknowledges over and over again how they treat her as the butt of their jokes expect her to fail or expect her to fall into line, but never support her ventures. Her mother seems to measure her own daughter's worth exclusively on her relationship status. That is true. Maybe this is more like people don't understand a Caribbean or Hispanic household, and there's this kind of like this cultural barrier, I guess you can say, that people don't understand, and people that are not Hispanics will not understand this dynamic because they don't live it or they haven't lived through it. Then she says, her brothers are just mean. It was just a SHIT on the FMC Fest by every single character in this entire book. Okay, so I have a rebuttal for that. I know we joke about this a lot, especially millennials, but we always joke around that our first bullies was our own family growing up. So nothing can really hurt us. Like, you can't tell me something about myself that I haven't heard of from my family. Hispanic families are nosy. They are nosy. They want to know everything. And especially Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas Eve dinners, they're over there already thinking about how to roast you. Was it not healthy and was it very toxic? Absolutely. I'm not going to lie there. But it actually built me like thick skin. Like, you can't tell me nothing, okay, that I haven't heard. They were my first bullies. Culturally, if you don't understand that, then there is a cultural barrier there. But also be open to that. Like, don't just sit there and say, yeah, I hate this whole book and I don't understand how her whole family dookies on her. You also need to put yourself in Camila's shoes and be like, oh, this is culturally different than what I grew up in. Like, way different. I'm not saying that you need to be Hispanic to read this book, but go with an open mind. Then she goes, I think the premise could have been cute if there was even a modicum of consent from the FMC or MMC. What? Consent for what? Consent for what? Like, consent with the whole dating thing, the fake dating, the fake engagement? I mean, these are old school grandparents. One is Irish and the other is Puerto Rican. Like, and then she goes on to say, I don't know, I've always been sensitive to the whole she's nothing without a man treatment of a FMC by her family. The true issue is that the resolution of this trope feels superficial. After theoretically years of their damaging words to Cammy, it's all solved in a simple I'm sorry. It sounds counterintuitive, but it would be so much more successful if it was an acknowledgement of the damage that was done and a promise to change future behavior. An apology is a start, but ultimately feels unsatisfying. Yeah, you're not going to get that apology, boo-boo. You're not going to get that apology from a Hispanic family. I know this all too well, especially old school Hispanics. The next one by Judy. This was just so annoying. DNF. The heroine Camila is a total doormat to her family. Her lazy brother, her gaslighting parents. There is no equality here. Yeah, no dookie. Like, there isn't one when you're being raised in an old school household. You got to understand, parents that are Caribbean old school are not going to say that they're wrong. They will never admit that they're wrong. They'd rather die than admit that they're wrong. And I think that there's just a barrier, like not understanding the culture. Then she goes on to say, she also seems responsible for her grandfather rather than, his own child stepping up. Camila is devoted to the family restaurant and is itching to update it, but the parents won't allow any changes, but certainly expect her to work at the business like a slave with no input. No, she wasn't a slave. She enjoyed cooking, and she enjoyed cooking so much that she is a chef, and she wanted to study abroad, and she got into a really prestigious school for cooking, for chefing, and if that's a word, I don't know. She loves and enjoys cooking. So it's not like she was slaving away. It's not like they were making her. She was there because she loves her family, and she was also there because she loves cooking. So she wasn't just like slaving away. But anyways, her personal life, or its lack, is dissected and dictated as well. The hero is Liam, an uptight and slightly prissy distillery owner who is also a family business he has to shoulder while receiving no respect or gratitude. Honestly, this book makes the older generation look vile and horrible. It's because the older generation doesn't do what our generation's doing with our kids, right? They believed in tough love. They believed in doing what they say, no questions asked. They don't believe in this whole, I'll listen to your feelings. They don't believe in feelings. They think of feelings as like a secondary thing. Like, I remember when I was little and I used to cry over something, they would tell me, do you want me to give you something to cry about? And honestly, that was the dynamic. Was it healthy? No. Do I treat my son that way? Absolutely not. I changed the game. I changed parenting. I healed. I am raising my son to understand that his feelings are valid and also that we can have feelings. And with my boy, like that whole thing, that whole spiel stopped with me. I stopped that generational trauma. I will not be introducing that to my son. However, that is the old generation way of thinking. And yeah, it does seem vile and it does seem like something, but at the same time, they just didn't know how to parent because that's how their parents parented them. So it's kind of like a cycle, a vicious cycle. And then she goes on to say, Liam and Kabila's grandfathers are best friends who live together and cause trouble like middle school urchins. Well, duh, when you get old and you're in like the last of your life, you want to live it up and you're going to be mischievous. And I know damn well I'm going to be mischievous when I'm an old lady. Also, I don't speak Spanish and the heroine's family were Puerto Rican and about 15% of their dialogue were references in Spanish. It was a lot of looking up until I just quit doing so. I didn't care enough. Nope, my TBR is too big for this time waster. There you have it, the disconnect. So you're telling me that as a reader, you don't want to expand on another language possibly? And looking those words up doesn't take so long. You can literally put the sentence or the sentences on Google Translate and Google Translate it. It's not that big a deal. There are books that have French and Italian in them. And guess what I'm doing? I'm putting them in Google Translate. And if you have a Kindle, you can literally highlight it and it'll translate it for you. It's not that big of a deal, but I digress. And the last one I'm going to read is Joan's review with 1 star. And it says, DNF at 63%. Triggering family dynamics plus insta love made this one not for me. I don't want to say it was insta love. It's not insta love because the characters both have a history together. How can it be insta love if they both have history together and feelings from when they were teenagers? It's not insta love. It's a progression. It's going from best friends to, okay, we are now friends again, to I really love this person, to I've loved this person my whole life, to, oh man, this is it. But to DNF a book at 63%, that's crazy. Maybe there should have been a disclaimer in the front of this book that there is toxic family dynamics. That might have given a reader a heads up on family dynamics and toxicity. I don't find it so triggering enough. Maybe it's because I've grown up with it. I don't find it as triggering enough to say I'm gonna DNF this book. I actually thought it was nostalgic. I related to it and I thought it was awesome. Don't let Goodreads deter you from picking up a book, please. This also proves that you shouldn't use Goodreads rating system as a guide to pick up a book. You don't know what your experience is going to be like with that book. It can be a book that someone absolutely hates and you end up loving it. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I love this book. And so F the people that rated it 1 stars because no one can take away the experience from you. With Goodreads, I feel that emotional impact doesn't really matter. Low ratings don't really give the whole picture of a book. It doesn't capture the emotional resonance that the book carried. How did it make you feel? I rate books off of emotional value. I rate them on how it made me feel and how it impacted me emotionally. So take Goodreads with a grain of salt, please. Do not let Goodreads keep you from a read that you will enjoy. I say try the book. And if it doesn't work out, if it doesn't make you feel, doesn't pull you, then yeah, DNF it and say, yeah, I didn't like this book. Next week, I will be choosing 2 new books and discussing both of the books that I pulled from my TBR jar, my little blind date with a jar. So stay tuned for that because there's a lot to unpack there. Did they live up to the expectations that I was thinking? Did they not? I mean, I didn't know anything about these books until I picked them out of my TBR jar, and I am so excited to share that with you guys next week. Did you read this book? Let me know in the comments section below. And also, did Goodreads ever scare you away from a book? And if it didn't, did it shock you that you liked a book, but Goodreads determined that it wasn't a great book? Let me know your experience, especially if you love this book as well. As always, thank you so much for watching and thank you so much for your time. And if you love this video, give it a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe to keep track of all my content and also to stay with me in this journey. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.